This is the 1968 Varsity Heavyweight Crew, the first Olympic 8 in Harvard's 117-year rowing history, leaving in its wake an unbroken string of intercollegiate victories stretching back to 1963. The ultimate in teamwork, unprecedented size and power. The climax of 5 of Harvard's most brilliant rowing years. 1964, Harvard's first undefeated heavyweight since 1959 sent 6 oarsmen and a cox to the Olympic Games. 1965, undefeated again, hailed as the fastest college 8 ever, winners at the year's top European regatta. 1966, a young, new crew with 5 sophomores aboard sent winners to the national championships. The same oarsmen competed in Yugoslavia on the World Championships team. '67, undefeated, gold medalist at the Pan American Games. American representatives at a historic international regatta in Canada. Silver medalist at the European Championships in France, falling only a few feet short of a gold medal and world rowing supremacy. 1968 began with a record-breaking capture of the Stein Cup. Princeton and MIT fell victims in the Compton Cup race. The Adams Cup with Pennsylvania and Navy trailing the Crimson by open water. Easton Sprints champions. This was the biggest race of the early season. The field included every good college crew in America. Each oarsman knew that the winner here would probably be the favorite at the Olympic trials. Ready all? Row! Harvard left the line at 45 strokes per minute in its fastest start of the year. But Pennsylvania had a good start too. Pennsylvania and Harvard less than half a length apart. But in the final 30 seconds, the Crimson heavyweights unleashed a finishing sprint that completely broke the Quakers. A new course record. Open water ahead of the Pennsylvania crew, which only a half minute before had been challenging for the lead. Sprint champions for a 5th straight year, unprecedented in rowing history. The Sexton Trophy, won at the Harvard-Yale Regatta. A rich collection for the varsity, freshman, and lightweight crews. But the biggest race of all for the varsity came after the end of the college season and a long way from Cambridge. The Long Beach Rowing Association of California was the setting for the 1968 Olympic rowing trials. The Vesper Boat Club of Philadelphia, heaviest and oldest contender in the finals. This club had stopped short Harvard's 8-oared Olympic bid in 1964, and it also upset the great 1965 varsity in England. Since that race, the Vesper motto had been, whatever boys can do, men can do it better. But the biggest threat in 1968 seemed to come from the University of Pennsylvania, who had improved enormously since the sprints. After winning the IRA regatta in June, this crew had shouted, "Bring on Harvard" at the trials. In the opening heats of the trials, Penn had already beaten Vesper, broken the course record, and bettered Harvard's qualifying time by 2 full lengths. When Harvard put its boat in the water for the finals, the oarsmen knew that they were seriously threatened by another college crew in a way that none of their famous predecessors had been for 4 years. The Harvard coxswain, helmsman, and strategist for the crew. Harvard coach Harry Parker had told his oarsmen just before they rode out to the starting line, there is no difference between the two crews. It will be the best race that will win. When the crews came within sight of the grandstand, Harvard in red and already eliminated Vesper rowing just beyond in white. But Pennsylvania, rowing too far to the left to show on the screen yet, was leading everyone. Harvard's strategy had been to try to break Penn during the third quarter of the course. But Penn had held off Harvard's bid and now surged into the last 90 seconds of the race with a big half-length lead. Here comes the Pennsylvania crew, and one of the most exciting finishes in world racing history. What a sight for the crowd lining the final 100 meters of the Long Beach course. The finish line is now a photo finish, but the exhausted oarsmen can hardly believe it's over. 7 agonizing minutes while the judges determine the winner. It's Harvard, an incredible performance, breaking the Olympic course record by 16 seconds and winning the race by less than a foot, 5/100ths of a second. The great Crimson heavyweights, living up to their reputation as spectacular finishers, had come from behind and completely overwhelmed the Pennsylvania crew. After near misses in 1948 and 1964, a Harvard 8 was on its way to the Olympics. An important chapter in the making of the Olympic 8 belongs to Newell Boathouse, the home of Harvard rowing since 1900. It was here in Cambridge that the oarsmen of 1968 took most of the strokes that eventually carried them to Mexico City. Throughout their years at Harvard, in workouts and in races, these oarsmen were treated to the best rowing equipment available in the world. Their wide English blade took hold of the water better than the thinner American oar. Adjustable leverage for varying wind conditions. Individually shaped handles to fit each oarsman's grip. The lightweight outrigger of their handcraft Swiss boat could be raised, lowered, or telescoped for individual comfort in any water conditions. Precise adjustments, even for a routine workout. Workout on the Charles River, one of the 98 that this crew shoved off for prior to its first race in April. Coach Harry Parker, 32 years old, in his 6th year at Harvard, the man who put together the Crimson's first Olympic 8. Parker had competed at the 1960 Olympics in Rome and been a coach at the 1964 Olympics in Tokyo. At Harvard, he was eager to experiment with the newest and best international rowing theories. Soon he became a pioneer in bringing to America foreign equipment and training techniques. By the start of the 1968 rowing season, he was recognized as America's leading crew coach. leisurely warm-up paddle, the start of even the most intense workout. And a word from the coach, the first hard racing of the day. This raced interval is over a carefully measured course between two bridges. The oarsmen know what time a top international crew might cover the distance in, and they are out to go faster. Full speed, the maximum effort from 9 of Harvard's greatest competitors. The coxswain, Paul Hoffman, a light 115-pound senior from the Virgin Islands, who had steered the varsity for 3 consecutive years. As a freshman, Paul had nailed a Mexico poster to the boathouse locker room door. At bow, 2-year veteran Dave Higgins, a 6'1", 194-pound junior from Worcester, Massachusetts. Dave had been his school's most outstanding athlete, winning 2 letters each in football, wrestling, and track. Rowing 2, Cleve Livingston, a 6'2", 180-pound junior from Carmichael, California. He had lettered in high school in basketball, swimming, and skiing. Cleve had tried crew just to get in shape for freshman basketball, but he never left the boathouse. 3-man, Steve Brooks, a 6'3", 196-pound sophomore from Weston, Massachusetts. The only oarsman on this crew who had rowed before coming to Harvard. At 4, 2-year veteran Fritz Hobbs, a 6'3", 199-pound junior from Concord, Massachusetts. At school, he had won letters in tennis, football, and hockey. Fritz played squash on Harvard's national championship team. Rowing 5, Scott Steckety, an advanced standing senior from Toledo, Ohio. At 6'4", 214 pounds, Scott had been for 2 years the heaviest oarsman in the heaviest crew in Harvard rowing history. Six-man Andy Larkin, a 6'5", 213-pound senior from Kensington, Connecticut. He had lettered twice in cross country at school. After 1 year rowing with the Harvard second freshman and 3 consecutive years on the varsity, Andy had never lost a race to any college in the world. At 7, 3-year veteran Kurt Canning, a 6'3", 201-pound senior from Salt Lake City, Utah, Harvard's 95th heavyweight crew captain. At high school, he had lettered in 3 sports, earning all-state and all-district honors. Kurt had been undefeated in 4 years of Harvard rowing. Junior stroke, Art Evans, a high school football star from Cincinnati, Ohio. The key to his crew's tremendous power late in the race. 7 out of the 8 oarsmen had come to Harvard with no previous rowing experience. Yet they were to become, by international standards, the best prepared college crew ever sent by America to the Olympics. Harry Parker was the first college coach to adopt the West German practice of interval training. Short, maximum energy bursts at a high cadence, rowed against the clock. The oarsmen are not satisfied with the time. They know they'll have to go faster. There were almost countless elements to the rowing style of the 1968 crew, and any single one might have significantly affected the speed of the boat. Highly trained hands and wrists maneuvering one 12-foot oar in exact synchronization with 7 others. The blade locking firmly onto a piece of water that rushed past at 13 miles per hour. A decisive entry and a careful release. The fluid, non-stop rhythm of the whole stroke cycle, a distinctive feature of this cruise style. Maximum power the instant the blade was covered. Body weight moving quickly. Strong back muscles driving toward the bow. Arm muscles finishing out the stroke. Most important of all, long, powerful legs driving flat quickly. Following European models, Harry Parker decided that most of the great strength of Harvard's 1968 varsity would come from training done outside of the boat. Parker designed a leg press, on which his oarsmen could do battle with over 3 times their body weight. Here's where those arm muscles came from. And here on this arm machine, which sometimes carried 200 pounds of iron weights. "400 pounds of resistance builds a powerful set of back muscles. Strong arms to finish out the stroke. That's an iron weight he's holding behind his head. Parker organized a weekly 2-mile running competition to develop wind and endurance. The Harvard Football Stadium. Sometimes 50 trips up, with less than a minute's rest between runs. Here's where a lot of that late in the race endurance came from. An Australian invention, new at the boathouse in 1968. By means of a ratchet and chain drive, each stroke the oarsman took turned a heavy flywheel. A belt around the flywheel could be tightened to add measured resistance. Parker studied the rower's strength and endurance by means of an odometer and a tachometer attached to the flywheel. Rowing in small boats, pioneered at Harvard, played an important part in pre-season training. Competition in fours helped Coach Parker select the 8 best men for his varsity. The pair without Cox, an effective teacher of blade work and balance. One mistake and even the strongest oarsman might find himself swimming instead of rowing. Off-the-water training ended in March when the ice on the Charles River thawed. When the 1968 varsity took its first on-the-water workout together in April, it already comprised the 8 best-conditioned athletes at Harvard in any sport. The workout ends as it began, with a relaxed paddle back to the boathouse. A good job. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer. The season at Newell Boathouse had been long, 160 workouts stretching from late September to early June. 320 hours of training for less than 1 hour of competitive racing. Yet it was partly this great expanse of time that attracted these athletes to crew as freshmen. They were perfectionists. They wanted to be the best, and they welcomed as a privilege the challenge of thorough preparation. In early June, already undefeated in 5 races, the 1968 oarsmen left Newell Boathouse and headed for Red Top to begin the next chapter in the story of their great crew. For every freshman and varsity oarsman, the trip to Red Top is the high point of the regular college season. Since 1881, Red Top has served as the Harvard crew training quarters for 2 weeks of preparation before the traditional 4-mile race against Yale. Nearly half a mile of shorefront. The varsity living quarters. Quarters, which houses the dining room, kitchen, doctor's office, game room, manager's office, and a dormitory for helpers and guests. The freshman living quarters. And on the shore of the Thames River, the boathouse. This is the Red Top. Each year, a new freshman class flag. And directly across the river from the boathouse, the Rock. Tradition has it that whichever college possesses the Rock on race day will win the regatta. When the Harvard crews arrived at Red Top in 1968, the Yale oarsmen had already captured the Rock. The Yale training camp, known as Gales Ferry, 1/2 mile upstream from Red Top. The Harvard coaches' quarters where Harry Parker carefully planned out the attack against Yale. Each day would begin with a morning workout down at the boathouse. This morning is unusual. The Friends of Harvard Rowing are making a special visit in Dan Newhall's yacht, which during the 60s had become as much a part of the red top scene as the boathouse. The occasion is the christening of a new varsity racing boat to be named after the 1921 crew captain, Louis McCagg. Captain Kurt Canning expresses the crew's gratitude to Mr. McCagg's brother, who had given the shell. The boat that carried the Harvard crew to Mexico City. Among the guests is Tom Bowles, retired Harvard athletic director and one of the most famous coaches in rowing history. He coached Harvard's crews from 1937 to 1951. As an innovator and as a winner, Bowles was in the 40s what Harry Parker had become in the 60s. The oarsmen get ready to put their new boat to use. Calluses and blisters, occupational hazards. With the race getting close, extra precautions are taken. Plans for the morning. The 20 red top workouts will be the most important of the season. The academic year having ended, the oarsmen can, for the first time, direct full attention to their rowing. Less than 2 weeks ahead, the long 4-mile race against Yale. And only 3 weeks after that, the short, intense Olympic trials. The Yale race course is over 3 times the length of the Olympic distance at Long Beach. How can Harry Parker get the best use out of red top in preparation for both races? The most difficult and the most crucial problem of his career. The morning workouts will be flat-out racing at the Olympic pace. The freshmen, junior varsity, and combination crews will add incentive. Competition from good lower crews played an important part in developing the Olympic 8. With freshmen and sophomores pulling like this, the varsity oarsmen cannot afford to let off for a single stroke. A historic sight, the first time that Harvard had rowed 5 crews on the Thames. The undefeated 1968 lightweights on their way to the Henley Regatta in England were spending a week at Red Top. far lane, the spirited freshmen and junior varsity boats still won't concede a thing, even to the Olympic crew. In fact, later in the summer, 5 of these lower oarsmen qualified for the Olympic team in small boats. But in the last minute of this workout, the varsity moves out into open water, showing its true championship speed. One of the best workouts of the year. Good competition for all the crews. Paddling back to Red Top, the crews pass some of their biggest neighbors on the river, nuclear submarines at the Groton Navy Base. After 2 hours of hard work, still the discipline for a perfect landing. With 10 miles of racing under their belts, the oarsmen will rest until lunch. Good food, a Red Top tradition, prepared by the Culinary Institute of America. A charcoal broiled lunch for 40 oarsmen. Or the favorite Red Top prime ribs. But if you lose your man, he won't bring you anything. Well, Betty told Dupree, buy me a diamond ring. Yeah. Betty told Dupree, buy me a diamond ring. When you row hard, you eat well. Betty, buy you most anything. He said, lie down, Betty, see what tomorrow brings. Lie down, Betty, see what tomorrow brings. May bring it sunshine. After lunch, relaxing. Captain Kurt Canning was a licensed barber in his home state of Utah. So Dupree took a pistol and he robbed that jewelry store. Indoors, the intellectuals. Dupree took a 30-80, robbed that jewelry store. You know, he killed 2 policemen, he left them lying on the floor. You could hear him sing. Andy Larkin and Scott Steckety prefer the outdoors. City stroke, Art Evans. Fritz Hobbs. But if you lose your man, he won't bring you anything. Now Dupree's in a death house calling out Betty's name. Oh, well, you can't win them all. In horseshoes, that is. The freshman. May bring you sunshine, may bring you diamond ring. But if you lose your man, it won't bring you anything. The annual softball game between the Harvard and Yale managers. And this Yale man seems to have forgotten tradition. Whoever wins the softball game loses the race. Brothers against brothers. Cleve and Mike Livingston take on Fritz and Bill Hobbs. That was nothing. When you see this one? Cleve, I think we just lost the game. Let's go get some sleep, Billy. There doesn't seem to be much competition today. And on their way, the victors give an impromptu display of coordination with croquet balls. Before the afternoon workout, the newspapers and television want photographs of the Harvard crew. When the television camera moves in for a close-up, the oarsmen are helpless. After a hard afternoon workout, a cookout supper. The juniors provide the dinner music. Because the senior oarsmen were training during Harvard commencement, they graduated at Red Top. The keynote speaker was Harry Parker. Scott Steckity, Bachelor of Arts, magna cum laude, recently elected to Phi Beta Kappa. Andy Larkin, on his way to Harvard Medical School. The coxswain, Paul Hoffman, cum laude honors. And Captain Kurt Canning, Bachelor of Arts, magna cum laude. A special graduation gift for each senior, a copy of Robert Herrick's book, Red Top. Harry tells the seniors that there is still another surprise for them. The underclassmen have cooked up an evening of entertainment for the recent graduates. The freshmen offer a barbershop quartet. Mike Livingston plays a Bach sonata. But the show stealer is the Junior Varsity Follies, featuring JV three-man Bob Goldkamp. The evening ends with the traditional unveiling of Red Top Rosie. Since the 1930s, Harvard crews have been wished good luck in spectacular fashion by cartoonist Milton Caniff. Race day morning. The traditional flag reminds the Yaleys that Harvard takes a beating from nobody. On their way to the boathouse, the oarsmen are in for a big surprise. The Rock will be Harvard's on race day after all. During the night, armed with gallons of crimson paint, the Harvard substitute oarsmen had driven off the Yale guards and begun much-needed restorations for the regatta. After a brief row, a pre-race cleanup. While the amateurs work, the boathouse professionals take time off. Paul Peters, Harry Parker's launch driver. Carl Stanley, retired launch driver of Harvard coach Harvey Love. Scotty Galt, Harvard's rigger and later rigger for the Olympic team. Preparations for rough water. The sticky track could cause tired legs. The dirt on an oarlock could hurt blade work enough to cause a bad stroke. Every year, some college crew loses a race because of a jammed seat. The final touch for speed by undergraduate manager Mark Harrington. With the oarsmen gone for their morning rest, the professionals had to break up their visit. The Peter Higginson will be the referee's launch. The mechanical parts of every racing boat have to be double-checked. Since Scotty had come to Harvard, no crew had ever lost a race because of an equipment failure. After lunch, the oarsmen received their programs and then settled down for the long wait until race time. The oldest intercollegiate athletic event in America. In 1968, thousands of spectators anchored their yachts and lined the shores of the Thames River to see the great Harvard crew row past. The freshman heavyweights, under coach Ted Washburn, had been undefeated national champions for 2 of the 3 years preceding 1968. None of Washburn's crews had even been challenged by Yale. They're off. And the 1968 Crimson freshmen in the near lane are out to prove that they're just as fast as their predecessors. 8 of the 9 men in this boat came to Harvard with no previous crew experience, but already they're rowing like champions. Open water in just the first few strokes of the 2-mile race. If the Yale freshmen are going to get back in this race, they're going to have to make a big move soon. Heading into the spectator fleet. Less than a quarter mile to go, and the Crimson freshmen have widened their lead over Yale. Next year, some of these oarsmen will be rowing with the varsity against the best crews in the world. Harvard freshmen opening up a tremendous margin during the closing seconds of the race. Winners 5 lengths in the lead. An outstanding performance by this young and inexperienced crew. A harsh reminder to the Yale oarsmen that this is going to be a 3-boat sweep by Harvard. At Red Top, the varsity have been called to the starting line for their race. They have heard on the radio the results of the races before theirs. The freshmen by 17 seconds. The Harvard junior varsity by 3 lengths. The varsity oarsmen know they are solid favorites, but 4 miles is a long way, 20 minutes. And they had spent half of their time at Red Top preparing for the Olympic distance, less than 6 minutes. The Yale captain had promised that his crew would make a tight race of it. His crew had finished 3rd at the Eastern Championships, right behind Pennsylvania. Harry Parker had particularly cautioned his crew to be ready for anything at the start. And there they go, the 103rd Harvard-Yale varsity race. From here, it's impossible to be sure which crew has the advantage, but certainly it's very close. Falling in behind the race, the referee's launch, and the Harvard coaches. The Yale launch, with veteran coach Jim Rathschmidt in the bow. The television boat, filming the race for later broadcast in color. One-quarter mile gone, and the Crimson, rowing at a settled 32 strokes per minute, have already edged out to half a length lead. This is what the Yale captain was sure his crew could prevent. Coming into the second half mile, the Harvard crew had already blown this race wide open, and there are still 3.5 miles to go. Even the great 1965 varsity, which beat Yale by 11 lengths, did not shake the Elis this soon. The Yale varsity trying to get back in the race. In the background, the special observation train, which carries hundreds of spectators down the course beside the crews. The halfway mark, 2 miles to go. This is very rough water here. If even one Harvard oarsman takes a bad stroke, it could be the chance the Elis are waiting for. The first 4-mile race for junior stroke Art Evans. And what a job he's doing for Coach Harry Parker now. 4 lengths ahead of the Yale crew, who said it couldn't be done. Unless this crew has magic working for them, it's going to be a very, very long row home from here. The Crimson of Harvard, driving up to the 3.5-mile flag. There it is, the last half mile. Hundreds of spectator boats lining both sides of the course. In the stern, senior coxswain Paul Hoffman urging his oarsmen on, calling for a power 10 as his crew drives into the last minute of the race. And here they come, the great Crimson heavyweight crew of 1968, less than 60 seconds from the finish line, with the Yale boat literally out of the picture. It's hard to believe that the Elis are still actually rowing in this race. This will have to be a record margin. The 1965 Harvard crew, which everyone called the fastest college crew ever, came down this stretch 11 lengths ahead of Yale, the widest margin in 30 years. But today, with no sign of Yale anywhere in the picture yet, this lead looks longer, much, much longer. Before the start of this race, Harvard stroke Art Evans said that no matter where his crew was in the last 30 seconds, they were going to show this crowd a flat-out finishing sprint. And here they are, all by themselves, rowing at an incredible 38 strokes per minute after 4 miles. It's all over. 44.4 seconds ahead of Yale, the widest margin since 1911. Certainly the outstanding performance of the year for this great crew. The tired rowers and their racing boat are brought back to Red Top by launch. Freshmen and junior varsity oarsmen waiting with congratulations. More handshaking and the traditional victory swim for everybody, including the coach. This was the great moment for these oarsmen. In the 4-mile race against Yale, they proved to themselves and to everyone that they were not only good, but also the best. Great as their famous predecessors had been, this performance was a new high point for Harvard rowing. The traditional broom at Red Top meant more this year than a sweep of Yale. It confidently predicted that the great crew of 1968 would win the Olympic trials and earned for itself a unique and permanent place in Harvard athletic history.